Hello everyone, it's Guy Costin and welcome to Dakota. If this is probably your first day or your first week at Dakota, I wanted to go through and explain to you how we look at our business from a storytelling standpoint and how we pitch our strategy. So what you're going to see in the next 8 minutes is a video of me breaking down how we pitch an investment strategy to one of our buyers. You're going to find we work in a very unique business where we never actually sell to the end buyer. We're always selling to an intermediary who's potentially selling to a committee who's then selling to a client. And so we can be sometimes 2, 3, 4, 5 times removed from the end buyer. So in this video, you're going to see me break down our entire Dakota Way approach. Now remember, the Dakota Way is broken into 3 key modules. Number 1, know who to call on. Number 2, know what to say, which is be a master messenger. And then 3, have a killer follow-up system. This segment is exclusive to know what to say and be a master messenger. Hope you enjoy. Just remember, what I'm going to talk about right now is one group's approach, okay, to basically sales, fundraising, and I'm going to go through some details. But it's all about this concept of the grapevine, right? It's really what you were getting at. As you're going to see strewn throughout the next 6 to 8 minutes, I'm going to talk about when you're selling an institutional investment strategy to an institutional buyer, and it really doesn't matter what you call the person that we face off against, a due diligence analyst, a chief investment officer, a senior analyst. It's always somebody in between you and the end investor. And sometimes it's 2, 3, 4, 5 times removed. But they have to repeat your story. And that's really the theme of what I'm going to talk about today. If I had a little more time, I would love to delve deep into what Michelle went through as well as Rick. But I'm just going to talk about how we've approached fundraising. So my name's Guy Costin. I'm the founder of Dakota. Our company was founded in 2006. We've been a third-party marketer to boutique investment firms. We have raised over $35 billion since our founding. We have done thousands and thousands of pitches. And the reason we have Dakota Way up here, we established really in 2010, 2011 timeframe, our way of operating as a sales organization on behalf of boutique investment firms. And the first concept, which I'm not going to cover, is know who to call on. The second concept is know what to say, or be a master storyteller. Because you spend a lot of time, money, and energy getting into the office and getting into the room, you really have to dedicate a ridiculous amount of time to your story and how you're telling your story. And so I don't always think of us raising money. I think of us as receiving allocations. And what I mean by that is I think of us as storytellers and telling a story that is highly memorable, easy to understand, and easy to retell. So it really puts us in the education business. As much as you think we're in the sales business, the fundraising business, we're really in this education business. And I'm going to give you the scenario that we think about. This is the only thing that we think about, is you have an investment committee. And when your advocate, who you've met with now, let's say our sales cycles in our business are 9 to 36 months plus, right? Very long sales cycles. It takes a lot of time to get to know a strategy. It takes a lot of time to build trust. But here's where we focus on the outcome, right? We're kind of starting with the end in mind and working backwards. You have an investment committee. At the investment committee, you have your advocate. It's that due diligence analyst that is having to present your strategy to his or her industry colleagues, right, on the investment committee. And they have to make a case. So back to Rick and what he was talking about, back to Michelle and what she was talking about, non-distinguishing characteristics in terms that mean really nothing. Well, now you have an individual that you have spent hours and hours and hours with is now taking huge career risk. And please don't ever underestimate, as you probably well know, our friends and industry colleagues that we call on. Every time they pitch an investment strategy, they are taking career risk. Not only just career risk of looking foolish or looking intelligent, but then once they make the investment, what happens? How does it perform, right? So the question is that we've always asked ourselves, what in the world have you been doing during that entire process of working with that due diligence analyst and creating familiarity? The whole game is creating familiarity with your strategy. And familiarity is all about who you are, what you do, how you do it. What are some of the common obstacles? There's always the thorny thing. It could be a PM departure. It could be a PM joining. It could be a new product launch. Different things that the actual due diligence analyst could get tripped up on when they're in that investment committee meeting. Now, I'm not saying there's not a lot of work being done before the investment committee, but if you think about what you're really trying to do, we always felt if we could educate better, have them become much more familiar with our investment strategy, if there's a tie for first, and that individual is getting kind of grilled by their investment committee or asking lots of questions, if they are more familiar with us, and let's say the numbers were equal or close to equal, would we win, okay, if we were much more familiar and they had a better understanding of all the little nuances of our investment strategy? And why this is so important, dating back to the first meeting, is you're setting an expectation, okay? We all know when we sit down and we face off with a due diligence analyst, they're judging us in so many different ways. Not only can they just understand at the basics of what we're saying and what we're doing, because you don't want to walk out of that meeting and have them walk down the hallway and talk to one of their colleagues, their boss, whomever, and it's like, hey, I saw Guy Costin's just in there with Edgewood. Do you have any idea what they do? And the due diligence analyst is like, I spent an hour with Guy, and I really don't know what they do. Right? That would be a horrific result. We have to be able to control those results by telling a compelling story and setting an expectation for what it's like to work with us if you were to hire us. Because it does have to come down to communication cadence, your clarity, your responsiveness. And when things get ugly, listen, every strategy underperforms. How do you react in a tough time? How do you communicate after a bad quarter? You're establishing and setting all these expectations during your communication process, your storytelling, and creating familiarity. So I always like to think, you get in that first meeting, you're setting those expectations. There's only one goal that you have, and the only goal is to get them to do more due diligence on your investment strategy. That's the only outcome. You can't win any business. They're not going to wire you $10 million in the meeting, but they can say, I'm kind of busy. I don't really have time to follow up and do more work on your strategy today. You really want to see and convince them that, it's so compelling, and you've told a story in such a compelling way, right? That's the key thing. If it's so compelling, and I always like to think, when we talk about storytelling, I've always felt when you meet a portfolio manager and you ask her or him one question, I always like to say, why do you get up in the morning and go to work? Like, what gets you excited about doing your job? All of those slides that Michelle and all those terms, they're not going to speak about one of those terms in all likelihood. They're going to talk about the true passion of doing the work, whatever it might be. It could be analyzing a stock, a private company, whatever it might be. It's whatever drives them and makes it compelling. So our stories have to be compelling. They have to make sense. They have to have logic. So what you really want to be able to do is it has to be memorable. And this is how I kicked off the call. You want it to be memorable, and then you want it to be repeatable. Right? At the end of the day, we live in the world of a grapevine. That's all it is. It's the story passed along down the line, down the line, down the line, all the way to the point where you can be 4 or 5 times removed. If you're maybe dealing with JP Morgan Private Bank, there's absolutely that could happen where you're dealing with investment specialists who have to communicate to the end client. So your story has to be easy to understand, it has to be memorable, and it has to be repeatable. And as Rick said, at the end of the day, the best storytellers win in the investment industry. So all we have focused on is becoming the best stories possible so our story can be told and retold with the same credibility that we told in the beginning.